This D&D Academia series is all about the creatures known as the Sorrowsworn. These are monstrosities that come in various shapes and sizes and are typically neutral evil. You can find information on these creatures in Monsters of the Multiverse or Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. The Shadowfell's pervasive melancholy sometimes gives rise to strange incarnations of the plane's bleak nature. Sorrowsworn embody the forms of suffering inherent to the shadowy landscape and visit horror on those who stumble into their midst. Each Sorrowsworn personifies a different aspect of despair or distress. Some are manifestations of anger, others are loneliness given physical form. Their nature provides a clue to both understanding how they become more powerful and overcoming them. Giving in to the negative emotions that the Sorrowsworn represent causes these entities to grow deadlier. Fighting against these emotions can weaken them and drive them away. The first Sorrowsworn I will warn you about are the Wretched. These Sorrowsworn are small monstrosities with a challenge rating of 1/4. A natural armor class of 15 and 10 hit points. Speed of 40 feet. 60 feet of Darkvision in no known languages. Damage resistances include bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing, but only while in dim light or within darkness. The Wretched has a pack tactics ability, where it has advantage on attack rolls against a creature if at least one of the Sorrowsworn's allies is within 5 feet of the creature, and the ally isn't incapacitated. The Sorrowsworn otherwise has disadvantage on attack rolls if it has no allies within 5 feet. As for actions, its bite is a melee weapon attack with +3 to hit and a reach of 5 feet on one target. If it hits, the damage is 1d10+1 piercing damage, and the Sorrowsworn attaches to the target. While attached, the Sorrowsworn can't attack, and at the start of each of the Sorrowsworn's turns, the target takes 1d10+1 necrotic damage. The attached Sorrowsworn moves with the target whenever the target moves, requiring none of the Sorrowsworn's movement. The Sorrowsworn can detach itself by spending 5 feet of its movement on its turn. A creature, including the target, can use its action to detach the Sorrowsworn. Here is their lore. Horrid little monsters, wretched Sorrowsworn or the Wretched, gather in packs to scour the Shadowfell for prey. These desperate entities subsist on life force. When they find a creature, they surge forward to sink their fangs into their victims and drink deep. To put these creatures into your game, just remember, the more the scarier. They thrive off attacking in groups. They work like lampreys or leeches and want to be attached to their victims at all times. Here are some pop culture examples of how you could use the Wretched in group dynamics. The Shriekers from the Tremors movies, the Mousers from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoons, or even the Compies from Jurassic Park: The Lost World. Will you release the Wretched on your adventurers, now that you know what they are? This next creature is the Sorrowsworn known as the Angry. They are medium-sized monstrosities with a challenge rating of 13, a natural armor class of 18, and 255 hit points. They have a speed of 30 feet, 60 feet of Darkvision. As for languages, they understand and can speak Common. They have damage resistances of bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing, while in dim light or darkness. This Sorrowsworn has 2 heads, which gives it advantage on saving throws against being blinded, charmed, deafened, frightened, stunned, or knocked unconscious. This also gives it a +11 to perception checks involving sight. It has a rising anger ability, where if another creature deals damage to the Sorrowsworn, the Sorrowsworn's attack rolls have advantage until the end of its next turn. And the first time it hits with a hook attack on its next turn, the attack's target takes an extra 3d12 psychic damage. This also means that on its turn, the Sorrowsworn has disadvantage on attack rolls if no other creature has dealt damage to it since the end of its last turn. As its action, it gets multi-attack, where it makes 2 hook attacks. Each hook is a melee weapon attack with a +8 to hit, with a reach of 5 feet on one target. The hit deals 2d12 plus 3 piercing damage. The lore for the angry goes as such. Relying on violence to sustain their existence, angry Sorrowsworn, sometimes called the Angry, grow more powerful when their foes fight back. If a creature opts not to attack, though, this Sorrowsworn becomes confused and its attacks weaken. It also has 2 heads which bicker with each other incessantly. Using the angry in your game can come about in many ways. Maybe if there is a barbarian in your party, it senses the rage and comes to seek it out. Perhaps some infighting has occurred, and now not only is your group dealing with PvP combat, but also the angry. You can definitely give this creature some personality, as the 2 heads tend to argue. The angry is ready and willing to release the beast on your players. Will you let it? The third Sorrowsworn we will discuss is the Hungry. It is a medium monstrosity with a challenge rating of 11, natural armor class of 17, and 225 hit points. It has a speed of 30 feet, 60 feet of Darkvision, languages, common, damage resistances of bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing while in dim light or darkness. It has a life hunger ability, where if a creature within 60 feet of the Sorrowsworn regains hit points, the Sorrowsworn gains 2 benefits until the end of its next turn. It has advantage on attack rolls, and its bite deals an extra 4d10 necrotic damage on a hit. For its actions, it does get multi-attacks. The Sorrowsworn makes 1 bite attack and 1 claw attack. The bite is a melee weapon attack with a +8 to hit and a reach of 5 feet on one target. The hit does 1d8 plus 4 piercing damage, plus 3d8 necrotic damage. As for the claw, it is also a melee weapon attack with a +8 to hit. It has a reach of 10 feet on one target. The hit will do 4d6 plus 4 slashing damage. If the target is medium or smaller, it is grappled and needs a DC 16 athletic strength check to escape. It is also restrained until the grapple ends. While grappling a creature, the Sorrowsworn can't make a claw attack. The lore of the Hungry describes it as a horrible creature with grasping claws and distended jaw. Hungry Sorrowsworn, also known as the Hungry, do whatever is necessary to sate their appetites. These greedy devourers stuff their maws with flesh and drink in their victims' screams. When they finish, they lurch away while their bright eyes resume the search for something else to consume. The obvious way to use this creature is to have it try to eat and devour all the players. But you could have the Hungry want to devour everything, not just flesh. The player's equipment, animal companions, depending on how large you'll allow them to open their maws, they could try to devour their tents or carts. Perhaps a few of the Hungry show up to the fort or keep of your players and begin eating their home piece by piece until they make it inside. Imagine hearing multiple rumbling stomachs on the other side of your wall. Now you know the voracious appetite of the Hungry. Will your players be their next buffet? Just 2 more Sorrowsworn left. This one is called the Lost. It is a medium monstrosity with a challenge rating of 7, a natural armor class of 15, and 78 hit points. It has a speed of 30 feet, 60 feet of Darkvision, languages common, damage resistances of bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing while in dim light or darkness. Its actions consist of multi-attacks with 2 arm spike attacks. The arm spikes are each melee weapon attacks with a +6 to hit, a reach of 10 feet on one target. If it hits, the damage is 2d10 plus 3 piercing damage. It gets an Embrace ability, which can recharge on a 4 through 6 on a d6 roll. The Embrace is a +6 melee attack to hit with a reach of 5 feet on one target. If it hits, it deals 4d10 plus 3 piercing damage. On a medium or smaller creature, the target is grappled and requires a DC 14 athletic strength check to escape. Until the grapple ends, the target is frightened, and it takes 68 psychic damage at the end of each of its turns. The Sorrowsworn can grapple only one creature at a time, but with a +6 to athletics check, that does become harder for any creature to escape. It also gets a reaction ability called Tightening Embrace. If the Sorrowsworn takes damage, the creature grappled by Embrace takes 4d8 psychic damage. Here is the Lost's lore. The Shadowfell turns visitors around until they become marooned in its twisted landscape. Lost Sorrowsworn, often referred to as the Lost, are representations of the anxiety and fear people experience when they can't find their way. These Sorrowsworn appear desperate and panicked. Lost Sorrowsworn grasp at any creatures they can reach. A victim experiences a flood of fear and panic as its mind buckles under the fury of this assault. The harder a victim's allies fight to break the grasp, the more the victim suffers. The way to make the Lost a truly sad and terrifying encounter is to have them mumble or shout statements of being lost, never actually responding to the players, but always having their own conversation to themselves. Maybe make it even sadder by having 2 or more sound like they're technically speaking to each other. For example, "Hey, I'm over here, where are you? I'm right here, and I can't see you." This way, perhaps your group thinks that these 2 got lost at the same time. Maybe in someone's backstory, they cared for someone who went to the Shadowfell and never returned. Now this creature you run into sounds just like them. The Lost are great at luring in unsuspecting players. A weak-looking individual or a childlike shape walking towards them, asking for directions or where someone is, who could say no to that? Will these creatures be showing up in your game? Can your players turn away someone saying, "I'm lost, please help me"? Our final Sorrowsworn is the Lonely. A medium monstrosity with a challenge rating of 9, a natural armor class of 16, and 112 hit points. It has a speed of 30 feet, Darkvision of 60 feet, languages common. Damage resistances of bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing while in dim light or darkness. It has a psychic leech ability. At the start of each of the Sorrowsworn's turns, each creature within 5 feet of it must succeed on a DC 15 wisdom saving throw or take 3d6 psychic damage. This Sorrowsworn thrives on company. The Sorrowsworn has advantage on attack rolls while it's within 30 feet of at least 2 other creatures. It otherwise has disadvantage on attack rolls. For its actions, it does get multi-attacks. The Lonely makes 1 Harpoon Arm attack, and it uses Sorrowful Embrace. The Harpoon Arm is a melee weapon attack with a +7 to hit and a reach of 60 feet on one target. The hit deals 4d8 plus 3 piercing damage, and the target, if large or smaller, is grappled and needs a DC 15 athletics strength check to escape. The Sorrowsworn has 2 Harpoon Arms and can grapple up to 2 creatures at once. The Sorrowful Embrace ability is where each creature grappled by the Sorrowsworn must make a DC 15 Wisdom saving throw, taking 4d8 psychic damage on a failed save or half as much damage on a successful one. In either case, the Sorrowsworn pulls each of these creatures up to 30 feet straight toward it. The lore of the lonely is as follows. The sorrow of isolation afflicts many creatures that lurk in the Shadowfell, but the need for companionship is never manifested more dramatically than in the lonely Sorrowsworn, also called the lonely. When these Sorrowsworn spot other creatures, they feel keenly the need for interaction and launch their harpoon-like arms to drag their victims closer. One of the best ways I have found to use the lonely is have one move into an abandoned building. The group hears someone from within speak about being trapped and alone. Once one of the party moves close enough, a harpoon-like arm shoots out and pulls them into the darkness of the building. Perhaps the group is camping at night, and they hear a voice moving towards their camp, talking about being so alone and needing help or companionship. Maybe a villager hurries back to town asking for assistance as they heard someone calling for help, stating they're stuck and all alone and in a cave or under a bridge. So now that your players know about the lonely, will they give them companionship? This has been a D&D Academia series all about the monstrosities known as the Sorrowsworn. Enjoy haunting, hurting, and horrifying your players.